I just want to ask you about this cost of living survey that the ACTU has done. We were reporting on some pretty disturbing figures coming out of it, suggesting that a quarter of Australians who'd been surveyed were skipping meals to make ends meet.
Yeah, that's the thing. When you start to run out of money because of inflation and the cost of things going up and your wages not, you've obviously got to look at your budget and work out what you can cut out. And for some people, there's nothing left to cut out other than meals. And we know that people are spending less on all the essentials. And this is, obviously a really bad situation for families, but it's also bad for the economy. When people don't have that extra money to spend, they stop spending in, local businesses. So we really got to address this issue and get wages moving again.
Yeah, and when do you think wages will start moving again if the IR legislation gets through?
I really think that employers who've stopped bargaining, and there's a lot of them, there's thousands and thousands of agreements that have not been renegotiated since the pandemic, they will start bargaining, I think, if these laws pass pretty soon, because they'll want to negotiate those arrangements with their workers, because if they do that, they're not caught by collective, multi-employer bargaining. And also there's some extra tools in there for workers. So if an agreement goes on for too long, the independent umpire will have a role to help resolve it. So I think those things together are a big incentive for employers to negotiate agreements. So really what this law does is give workers better tools in negotiations for wages. What happens in terms of the outcomes of that, I guess in the end, is up to both workers and employers.
The inflation rate yesterday, 6.9%, came down a little bit and was certainly lower than what had been anticipated. Is that the glimmer of hope that some people were hoping it might be?
Look, I really hope so. There's been sort of two schools of thought. One is that this is just a spike and we're going to get close to Christmas and inflation is going to come off. Of course, all of us optimists would really like that to be the case, and other people saying, no, this is going to be a longer term issue. Well, I mean, workers have had low wage growth through this whole period. Obviously, wages have nothing to do with the current inflation problems. And really, I hope the optimists are the ones that are going to win this one, a bit like the Socceroos did last night, and that we're going to see the end of the inflation we've seen.
Yeah. Sally, I just want to ask you about, back on the IR legislation, you had a pretty good coalition going with some leading business leaders like Jennifer Westacott and Alexi Boyd, who's the head of the Council of Small Business Organisations. She's now on some kind of leave. The opposition's been calling for her to be sacked because of her approach. What does that say to you about the state of debate on IR in Australia?
I think that there's been a lot of hysteria, and I absolutely have seen a lot of pressure, some may call it bullying, that's happened towards parts of the business community, and that I'd really like that to stop. I think it's been incredibly irresponsible for some people to be scaring the hell out of small business. They're not going to be affected by these laws other than the fact that their customers might have more money to spend. And I really hope that, after they pass, that everyone can cool down. We don't want a type of situation where there's this type of hysteria and scare campaigning, and for that matter, conflict. We should all be working together to get wages moving, to negotiate fair agreements. If workers see the benefits of their hard work, obviously they're going to be better, more committed employees, and that's really good for the country, and that's the direction we should be going on, not, where we've been the last, really month, I think.
Well, over the last few days, it's the opposition, Susan Lee, who wrote to the Council of Small Business Organisations, raising questions about Alexi Boyd's leadership. Does that qualify as bullying?
I would qualify that as that. Imagine if, a minister in the Labor government said that the ACTU's head should be sacked. It's a pretty serious thing to do. I don't really want to comment too much on other organisations and what's going on there, but I have to say that even though we have disagreements, a lot of those people are good people. They're human beings, they're good people, they're doing a good job for their members, and then I think that, just advising your board of something, it's up to the board what they do, and it's all got to do with whether or not they're going to support, big, minerals company, and this is small business. Anyway, I don't want to get too much into that, but I think that was a pretty disgraceful thing for Susan Lee to do.
What do you think about the relationship between business and this Labor government? I know you're sitting sort of on the other side of the fence, but we've got BHP coming out today criticising the IR legislation, more suggestions that there's got to be fences to mend here for the Labor government.
Well, I think that people have whipped themselves up into a bit of a fury, like a lot of people got their knickers in a knot, and that some of it's fake. It's just a thing to try and put pressure on the government or onto the crossbench. And when these laws go through for big employers like BHP, life will go on as normal. I think that people will cool down and they'll get on with their businesses and get on with the other things they really care about, like, for example, the skills crisis in Australia and the energy crisis in Australia.
Sally McManus, thanks for coming on this morning.
Thank you.